In the year 2091, many human spacewatch stations were working in silence far beyond the orbits that normal people think about, and one of those watch stations had weak-old sensors that nobody wanted because they were too simple compared to newer stations, but those weak sensors became the first to see a strange signal that looked like nothing from Earth or from Mars, or from any known human machine. And the operators inside the small ice-cold room believed at first that the equipment had failed because the signal kept repeating again and again with a strange shape that did not fit the normal patterns of radio noise. But the operator on duty at that time, a quiet woman named Maria, did not delete the signal, she saved it. And she told her supervisor, and the two of them played the audio through the only old speaker in the small console. At first it only sounded like a sharp, fast rise, and then a cold, like drop with a hiss. But after she listened very slowly, she noticed pattern. Inside that sharp sound there were repeating gaps and repeating pulses, and she called a friend at another watch station and she sent the sample. And he also listened, and he also said that there was real structure inside the pulse. The two of them sent the recording to the ESA-NASA Joint Research Director and said this was not random noise, and it was not machine failure. Inside the next 3 days, every deep space listening array that was pointed outward began to hear the same pulse, and the direction lined up with a slow spinning object drifting just past Neptune. The scientists then created a crosslock estimate of origin and saw that the object was not a comet or an asteroid or a piece of human junk. This object was a ship, and it was huge, and it was made from some alloy that did not match any human metal, and it had no engine signature that humans understood, but it was still broadcasting weak repeating pulses that nobody could translate yet. The United Council for Space Security then ordered silence. The public was not told. The public did not know anything, and the people who knew were ordered to never speak outside of internal encrypted line. Every report was marked classified top secure. And only 12 people in the first tier had permission to read full censor sheets. Then a small team of xenolinguists was pulled out of academic labs, and they were told that their new task was not theory, but field translation. They were given digital copies of the pulse, and they were told to find any segment pattern that could be a marker of information. They were also told that they could not share anything with any civilian, and that time was important because the pulse was decreasing in strength day by day, and if the pulse turned off, then humanity might lose the first ever chance to decode something that came from outside the solar system. For 14 days, the translation team worked with artificial intelligence language models and pattern recognition tools, and they found stable segments that repeated at stable interval timing. The stable segments were not random. They looked like warning flags or distress grammar, like the type that sailors on Earth would use when a ship is sinking, and they found that the pulse looked like a high-priority emergency broadcast with a repeating urgent call structure. And the team said their first working assumption was that this was an SOS. The scientists wanted to think that the ship was asking for help. The scientists liked the idea, and the scientists believed maybe this was the first chance to show that humans could be good and not violent, but none of them stopped to ask if the SOS was meant for humans, because every person in the room had a secret hope that maybe this was how first contact would happen, and that humanity would not be alone anymore. What they did not know was that the pulse was never meant for any being from Earth, and that the ship out there was never trying to call humans. The pulse was meant for another species in another far distant direction, and the pulse was a warning, not a request. And every time the pulse repeated, it was telling other alien ships that something terrible was happening, and that the ship had lost control and that nobody should approach, but the humans could not translate that layer at this early time, and so humans did not understand the danger. The governments then approved a human mission. The mission was named Operation Dawnbreak, and it was not allowed to be reported in any news channel. The whole mission was hidden behind layers of fake budgets and fake corporate funding notes. The ship for the mission was a heavy armored research vessel named the USS Calypso, and it could reach beyond Neptune within 3 weeks of continuous burn. Many people on Earth believed they were living in a simple decade of stable peace and slow technological growth. But the crew on the Calypso was not living in peace. They were being sent to touch an object that might have been floating in deep cold space for thousands of years. And the crew had no idea how alien technology would react to human touch. and there was risk that the alien hull might be coated in some form of energy that humans had no protection for, but still they went. Because humans always push forward and always try to reach the unknown, even if the unknown may bite them in the end. When the Calypso reached a distance where the cameras could zoom far enough, the crew used every optic tool they had to look at the alien vessel, and even though the alien vessel had no external lights, its thin hull had a smooth gleam that looked like liquid black stone, shaped into a giant tear, and the hull surface had small shallow cuts like knife marks, but those cuts were arranged in pattern and looked like symbols, and the pilot said the hull looked like it was made to work like a single organism, not like a machine built from many small parts like a human rocket. As the Calypso moved closer, the humans noticed energy distortion around the alien vessel. Sensors flickered. The crew had never seen anything like that. The distortion was not heat and not magnetism. It was something else. The machines on board tried to define it, but the machines could not name it and they could not simulate it, and the sensor logs kept showing brief drop into zero, then spike into massive unknown values, and the crew began to worry because the distortion was touching their hull and they could feel strange static in their teeth and inside their bones. Inside the command room, the captain said they should hold distance, but the command from Earth said they must approach and they must open the airlock and they must enter because the mission was too important and because this alien vessel might never appear again in human history, and the people on Earth wanted to take the chance while they still could, and so the humans began to suit up when the team entered the alien ship. They found long, narrow corridors with walls like smooth ice, and they found rooms with strange, soft ridges that were not furniture and were not equipment, and might have been some kind of structure used to hold bodies in place or maybe used to link minds to machine, but the humans could not tell, and they had no sample to compare, and the air inside was so thin and so cold that human breath froze on surface of their helmets and then faded away like tiny smoke shadows. In one of the main chambers they found the core. It was huge, like a heart made of some strange cold crystal that pulsed with tiny dim sparks. The humans thought it was some type of central mind, and they tried to collect data with their scanners, and the body sensors inside the human suits showed their heart rates rising and their skin temperature dropping, even though the suit was warm and the ambient temperature was regulated. The human bodies were reacting to something that the human brain did not understand, and the suits recorded unknown neural levels inside the temporal lobes as if the humans were hearing something without sound. When they tried to remove the core with a tether anchor, the core sudden pulsed very bright and all human. Helmets showed spike in signal. The pulse blew out the portable console in the chamber, and the entire alien ship sent a new broadcast into space, and none of the humans understood what they had just triggered. Yet the pulse was now louder and stronger, and now every deep space listening station on Earth could hear the new pulse inside its receivers. And that pulse was not an SOS this time. That new pulse was an alarm that meant something else, and the data stream had a new structure that the humans had never seen. And that new structure now named Earth as something that the aliens had feared for so long, and the humans had no clue that they had just told the galaxy that humans were here and that humans had touched the forbidden ship without permission. The return signal sent from the alien core device on that day did not only grow stronger, but it changed in tone, and the computers on Earth could see the change in the raw numbers, and the scientists who watched the stream saw that the shape of the wave was no longer even close to the shape of a distress wave, and now it looked more like something angry or shocked, or maybe even afraid, and the scientists inside the control center were not ready for this because their minds had only prepared for peaceful theory, and they did not want to admit that they had maybe made a mistake that could not be undone, and the first quiet fear began to settle itself into small cracks inside every mind in the control room, even if none of them said it out loud. On the USS Calypso, the crew was also confused because the moment the alien core pulsed bright, many of the suit HUD screens flashed with unreadable symbols that appeared for half a second, then vanished, and every helmet camera that recorded the moment also got streaked by static that then cleared again, and the crew thought it was just system interference. But later, back on Earth, the mission analysts slowed down the frames and they saw that the static was not random, because the lines in the static formed repeating vertical bars that almost looked like a new alphabet. And if translated, maybe those bars might have been words, or might have been commands, but nobody would know. because the humans on the ship did not understand or record that concept at that moment. They only knew that the core had reacted to their touch. The core did not want to be removed, no matter how gentle the humans tried to be, because after that blast of bright energy, the core began to vibrate, and the vibration pushed through the gloves and moved into the bones of every person in the chamber, and several team members almost threw up because the vibration felt like a wave of cold fear running through muscle and spine, and the team leader ordered them to step back and ordered the tether line to be released, and the core slowly slowed and its energy pulse dimmed again. But the damage was already done, and the core had already chosen to tell the rest of the galaxy that a forbidden species had made contact. Earth-based control stations were now receiving new signals from sensors far outside the main traffic zones near the outer rim of the solar system, and those sensors began to show small bright light arcs that were not comets or meteors, and the shape of those arcs indicated arrival of objects by unknown type of faster-than-light jump. And the simplest interpretation was that very advanced ships were entering the solar system at high speed, and not from any human colony and not from any human route, and different stations confirmed that these objects all had the same vector line, and that vector line pointed straight toward the place where the first alien ship was floating in the dark behind Neptune. Inside the political structure on Earth, the leaders were now divided because some of them believed that these unknown arrivals might be friendly, and maybe these aliens were coming because they had heard the alien SOS, and maybe they were coming to help, and maybe they would be peaceful. So they said the humans should not arm or attack, but other leaders pointed at the data logs that said that the alien core sent a different type of pulse after human contact, which might have told those other ships that humans had done something wrong. And the second group of leaders thought that this was maybe a warning pulse that said that humans were a threat, and that the newcomers would most likely come to attack because they were scared of humans. The military commanders decided to prepare for worst case without telling the public, because if the public knew that unknown alien ships were flying towards Earth, then panic would destroy the order of every major city on the planet, and the military units who were selected to respond to this new threat were the foundation units of Project Leviathan, which was a program that had been kept hidden for 10 years and which had been created because some scientists had believed that humanity might meet alien civilizations one day and might need a giant ship to face that event with enough force. And Project Leviathan had built a massive warship with so much kinetic mass and so much armor that no known human weapon could destroy it in one shot. And this ship was named Ares Prime, and it was docked inside a hidden bay, inside a deep orbit storage ring around the moon, and only the highest class commanders knew that Ares Prime even existed. When the new alien ships crossed the threshold near Neptune, the computer models said that there were at least 25 distinct signatures that looked like war vessel power curves, and not a single one looked like a rescue vessel, and not a single one looked like a civilian craft, and every ship was radiating fields that were completely invisible to human science and did not match any chart, and these fields were so intense that they made small shifts in local gravity, and the sensors had to recalibrate every few seconds because the numbers would drift too fast if the software did not re-anchor itself again and again. And this was the moment when the leadership finally acknowledged that humanity had not found friends, they had found danger. The crews on the Calypso were ordered to retreat because there was no point staying near the alien ship anymore, because the alien ship was now a beacon, and the new warships were heading directly toward that location like arrows. And the command center believed that the first wave of alien ships probably wanted to destroy the original alien wreck first and erase any evidence, and then maybe destroy the humans next because humans had touched something they were not supposed to touch. And so the Calypso had to run and had to avoid any direct line of fire from incoming alien vessels. And so the Calypso began to burn all engines at full power and began a high-speed return, vector into deeper solar system safe zone. And the captain did not have to think twice to follow this order because she was not ready to watch her ship turned into dust by an unknown weapon. During the escape, the crew could see the alien warships appear in the dark, and they could see strange glimmer lines appear around those ships, and they could not explain how a ship could jump into existence with that type of shine, because it did not look like flame, and did not look like warp distortion, and did not look like plasma shock. It looked more like the light of distant stars bending around a shape that was invisible, until the moment the shape became real, and then the shape became solid black, like cut glass. And then the sensors saw mass, and then the human mind saw ship. But even when the ship became visible, some of its edges remained blurry, as if the shape was not fully anchored into normal space. The first alien warship fired one shot at the original alien wreck and the Calypso. Sensors saw the entire wreck disintegrate into a million tiny grains that burned like sparks, then vanished like dust. And the crew gasped, because no known weapon could do that without any blast wave and without any heat trace and without any electromagnetic burn code and without any radiation glare. And so the humans now knew that alien weapons could destroy matter without explosion, without fire, without thermal blast, and without laser signature. And that type of weapon was the most terrifying thing any human had ever seen. The alien ships then began to scan the area where the Calypso had been before, and the human ship had just moved out of the detection cone right in time. And so the Calypso was now running for its life, and the crew on board were fighting to keep calm, because every nerve in their bodies told them that these alien ships might be able to rip the Calypso apart like paper, but the crew had to keep their breathing steady, because panic in space would only kill them faster. In the United Council headquarters, the commander of Project Leviathan gave the activation order, and in that moment, the giant warship Ares Prime came online, and every deep power bank began to charge, and every heavy kinetic launcher began to arm, and every shield plate began to warm to combat level, and the human race was no longer waiting to see what would happen. They were now engaged in a conflict that they did not plan, and did not expect, and did not want, but they now had no choice, because the galaxy had decided that humans had touched forbidden things, and now the galaxy was coming to kill them, before they could become something worse. Inside the tactical planning room on Earth, the top commanders watched the movement of the alien. Ships on holographic map displays, and every small dot that represented an alien ship was now moving with fast, straight precision, and every alien ship seemed to be rushing toward the inner solar system, and no alien ship was drifting or exploring, and that meant that the aliens knew exactly where they wanted to go. And the commanders understood that the aliens were hunting something. The aliens were hunting the humans who had touched the forbidden wreck, and the aliens were trying to trace the path of the Calypso, because the Calypso had carried biological samples, and those biological signatures might now be in alien archives, and maybe humans were now tagged as something that needed to be erased, and every scientist in the room had a small piece of dread forming in their mind, because the simple truth was that the humans had not even considered that alien civilizations might have historical memory about the type of planet Earth was, and maybe humans were already famous in other star maps as a dangerous species that should be left alone. And maybe the original alien wreck existed because it had been damaged by something like humans before, and maybe the wreck was like a warning sign floating in space, telling other alien species to never step near the region of the Deathworld. Inside the ship Ares Prime, the crew was waking up from cryo-sleep, and the crew did not understand why the wake-up cycle had been triggered so early, because many of them had no idea that alien ships were now inside the solar system. All they knew was that a massive battle order had been uploaded into the ship tactical core, and every station that had been silent for years was now active, and every screen that had been dark was now glowing with warning notifications and scripts that told the crew to prepare for full combat posture. And the main rail mass accelerator was now spinning up, and that machine was so big that the hum could be felt through the floor plates, like a slow, constant earthquake inside the hull, and the medical officer on board could see in every crew biofeed that adrenaline was spiking, because the human body always reacts when war is near, even if the human does not know the full reason, yet because instinct knows before mind knows. The Calypso was still running, and the crew of the Calypso did not dare to turn off thrust even for 1 second, because they could look behind them and see the alien warships shining like sharp black mirrors in the distance, and the Calypso did not have stealth mode and did not have heavy armor. So the only strategy was run and hope that the alien ships needed more time to lock their sensors, or maybe wait for a signal command. And the captain of the Calypso asked Earth if it could hide behind a small moon of Uranus, but Earth Command said no, because the alien ships were not following normal sensor logic. They were not using radar, and they were not using light return scan, and they were not using heat trace to find targets. The alien ships were using some type of exotic field, and that field might have been able to detect life forms from long range, and if the aliens could trace life, not machines, then it meant that hiding the Calypso behind a moon would not work, and the only thing the Calypso could do was move deeper toward the gravity well of the inner solar system, until the ship could cross into the protective range of Ares Prime, which was now en route to intercept back on Earth. The translation team had finally unlocked a piece of the new waveform that the alien core had broadcast after human contact, and the moment the linguists saw the translation key, their hands got cold, and they said a sentence that would change every belief that humans ever had about first contact, because the alien signal was not a request for help. It was a containment alert that meant breach of quarantine by Category 10 organism, and the linguists then ran the category index through the code and the index returned. That Category 10 was a classification meaning Deathworld apex predator species that must be destroyed on sight, and the linguists showed the printout to the leaders, and all the leaders became silent because they understood that the aliens were not coming to talk, and they were not coming to check, and they were not coming to send warnings. They were coming to purge. The alien fleet then split into two groups, and half of them rotated toward the orbit curve of Jupiter, and the other half rotated toward the inner elliptical path of Mars, and every alien vessel was now forming a two-axis pincer formation that would block any path out of the solar system and would also block any path that might allow other humans to approach. And this type of formation meant that the aliens had done this before, and that the aliens knew how to trap a star system. They had procedure for this, and this was not experimental behavior. This was standard protocol. And the humans saw that the alien fleet was not afraid, because fear makes mistakes, but these alien ships made no mistake and made no hesitation. And that meant they had trained for this situation before, which meant that they had dealt with other Deathworld species in the past. Ares Prime left the lunar storage ring and accelerated toward Central Intercept, and the engineers inside Ares Prime began to unlock weapon systems that were never supposed to be used, because these systems were built only for theoretical defense against unknown enemies of unknown strength, and many of the weapons on Ares Prime were even classified to the crew. And some weapons were locked behind sealed AI partitions, because unlocking all of them would require two separate command keys that no single human had, because the designers of Ares Prime believed that no single mind should have the power to deploy every weapon the ship carried, and the command team was now contacting Earth and asking for key split activation, but the leaders on Earth were arguing, because if they activated full weapon load, then Ares Prime might be so dangerous that even humans would not be able to control it later. But if they did not activate full weapon load, then the alien ships would crush the humans in minutes. Inside the Calypso, the crew were now watching their forward sensors show the signature of Ares Prime, and when they saw the massive silhouette of the human dreadnought, they all felt a surge of hope in their hearts, because the shape of Ares Prime was so big and so armored that it made every other human ship look small, like a toy. And the crew of the Calypso began to cry, because finally they were not alone, and finally they had something between them and the alien fleet that was strong enough to fight back. But none of them knew that even Ares Prime was maybe not strong enough, and none of them knew that the alien fleet might have weapons that were far beyond anything humans could imagine, because the alien ships were built by species who were not afraid to fight and not afraid to purge Deathworlds, and who would bring every tool they had to erase the threat fast, because they had charted this part of the galaxy long before humans even learned to write. Then Ares Prime spoke to the Calypso and ordered the Calypso to come under its direct shield umbrella, and the Calypso responded with joy and began to arc its flight line to match the vector of the dreadnought, and the dreadnought began to adjust its armor plates so that the defense matrix would be strongest in the area where the Calypso would be, and the captain of Ares Prime ordered full forward heavy rail battery charge up, and the massive magnets began to hum with such deep bass that the entire armored deck began to shake, and the crew tightened their harnesses, because they knew that this was not a drill. This was the moment when humans would either survive or be forgotten forever, when the alien fleet reached a position where the forward edge of their formation could see the energy shadow of Ares Prime. The lead alien ships altered alignment in an instant, and every movement they made looked like pure precision, because not one of the alien vessels drifted, and not one of them lost formation, spacing, And when humans saw that perfect movement, they finally understood that the aliens were not improvising. They were following a plan that they had used many times before against other star civilizations who were also classified as Deathworld. Apex threats, and the commanders on Earth who watched the telemetry stream felt a slow, dull sting of fear that entered the human nervous system like icy smoke, because they finally felt the truth in their bones that these aliens had done this before, and they were good at it. Ares Prime fired warning rail shot number 1, and the projectile exited the heavy coil in silence, because space does not carry sound, and humans did not know if the alien ships would even notice the kinetic round, because the aliens did not have to defend against heat or fire or shock blast, since this rail slug moved at such speed that it was almost invisible. And then Ares Prime tactical sensors watched for change, and they saw that one alien ship adjusted its hull skin field just before the rail slug hit, and then the slug vanished like chalk dust and did not even scratch the alien hull. And the crew on Ares Prime gasped, because that shot was not just powerful, it was a type of weapon that could destroy an entire mountain. Yet it did nothing. And now humans understood that alien defensive hull field was able to cancel mass energy impact in real time and cancel it without recoil signature. The Calypso hid inside the shield envelope of Ares Prime, while the Dreadnought turned its entire main hull toward the alien fleet, and the captain ordered every secondary rail bank to full kinetic spread mode, and then multiple shots fired like needle spears in long straight lines, and every projectile flew into the enemy formation, and every projectile also disappeared on contact. And the Dreadnought weapon officers felt the worst feeling a soldier can feel, because they knew that their best shot was useless, and all human pride fell apart in that moment, because humans finally realized that the aliens were not just stronger. They were prepared for the strongest possible threat, and that meant they had studied Deathworld species long enough to design perfect counters. Then the alien fleet opened fire, and there was no flash and there was no bright beam. There was only a sudden tearing of local space that looked like black slashes that appeared in front of each alien vessel, and those black slash shapes jumped across vacuum like needles of night. And when they hit the outer shield shell of Ares Prime, the entire megaship shook like a living thing that had just been punched in the heart, and the shield plates began to flicker and show strange fractal stress lines, and the Dreadnought hull telemetry was filled with error strings, and none of the computers could name the energy type that was attacking the shields, because it was not plasma, and it was not gamma emission, and it was not mass impact. It was something else, like direct manipulation of vacuum geometry itself. The alien fleet intensified fire, and Ares Prime defense AI began to graph collapse risk for every shield section, and then the AI stated that shield nodes would not hold long, and Ares Prime captain ordered immediate close-range engagement, because if humans were going to survive, then humans had to bring the fight into a range where alien field control might lose efficiency, because maybe the alien system had weakness at close contact distance, and maybe if humans rammed the enemy or stabbed the enemy with kinetic mass, they could break the alien hull field by brute physical contact, and so engines on Ares Prime went full forward, burn, and the giant Dreadnought surged ahead like a charging creature rising from the ocean of void. Inside the Calypso, everyone was thrown against walls because the blast waves of alien impact carried shock into metal structure, and several crew members lost their breath and some teeth loosened because the vibration pattern inside the alien energy weapon moved into human bone and felt like sharp cold sickness inside the body. And one crew member began to cry because she thought they were already dead, and that everything they were doing was only delay until the weapon strike that would end them. And she whispered that maybe the legends about Deathworld species were true, and maybe humans were a mistake in the evolution tree of the galaxy, and maybe the universe had tried to lock Earth away for a reason. Ares Prime slammed into the first alien ship in a full-speed ram, and the alien hull flickered like liquid metal, trying to decide if physical force could be absorbed, but the acceleration weight of the Dreadnought pushed the alien field so far that the alien hull skin began to crack, and the crack looked like bright white lightning running across the alien vessel surface. And then the first alien ship folded into itself like a crushed egg and turned into tiny fragments that sparked for a moment, then evaporated, as if the ship had been a hologram held in place by field control. And the crew of Ares Prime shouted, because this meant that humans could hurt them if the strike happened at direct, brutal point-blank contact. The alien formation reacted instantly, and 10 alien ships moved in at once, and they formed a tight ring around the dreadnought and shot their vacuum blade weapons all at once. And those black slash shapes came in from every angle, and the Ares Prime hull plates screamed as stress waves tore through them, and emergency bulkheads slammed shut as metal structure began to tear in long horizontal rips like paper, and sparks floated inside sealed corridors because oxygen emergency foam was being pumped across exposed wiring, and every crew member who saw those sparks felt panic crawl up their spine because they could imagine the whole megaship breaking apart any second if one stress tear went a little deeper than the others. Earth Command watched the battle from 1,000,000 kilometers away through sensor relays, and they were silent because they knew that the entire future of humanity was now only in the hands of one ship, and if that ship died, then the aliens would go straight for Earth next, and every major city would be gone in 1 hour, because nothing on Earth could withstand that alien weapon type, and humans would be erased, and history would never even have a grave marker to say they existed. Ares Prime Tactical AI then identified weak point lock windows between alien hull field pulses because each alien ship had to open a micro gap in its hull field every few seconds to take a new breath of vacuum energy for its weapon systems, and those micro gaps were so small that humans had not seen them before, and the gaps lasted so short that only AI could predict timing. But this new discovery was the only path to survival, and the captain of Ares Prime said, "Fire." All railguns synced to that narrow gap window, and the entire forward and side coil banks fired at once, and 100 rail spikes flew out like a hail of cold steel and hit 3 alien ships at the exact millisecond when their hull gaps opened, and those 3 alien ships exploded into broken shards of mirror black dust. The aliens lost 3 ships in 1 second, and the alien formation broke its perfect circle for the first time. And when the aliens saw that the humans could learn their timing pattern and could strike back in strategic rhythm, the alien fleet changed behavior from purge stance to emergency stance, and that shift told the humans that the aliens had fear that the humans might adapt faster than expected, because Deathworld species always learn during battle and always grow deadlier during war, and the alien fleet now had to decide if they would push the attack now or if they would call for an even larger fleet. And the humans knew that if the aliens had a larger fleet waiting somewhere, then Earth might not survive the next wave. The tear in space kept growing, and there was no color in that tear because it was not like a portal that humans knew from science fiction. This tear looked like someone had peeled open empty space itself, and inside the tear there was only more darkness. And this darkness was more dark than anything humans had ever seen, and this darkness looked like hunger. And Ares Prime tactical sensors said they were reading pressure of mass from inside the tear, and that pressure was so heavy that the dreadnought main hull began to vibrate because the arrival mass of the alien capital ship was so large that it was already changing the local gravity curve, and the alien lesser ships moved aside to make path, and this told humans that the new arrival was not just support. It was command inside Calypso. Every crew member stood still like statues because they could feel something in their mind, like cold eyes watching them from inside that tier. And humans were not sure if that feeling was sensor noise or if that feeling was alien pressure that was so strong that it could reach into thought, but the feeling was real enough that one engineer said he felt like something beyond that tier was looking at humans, like a person looks at a small insect before stepping on it to end it, and nobody argued because this feeling was too heavy to ignore. The dreadnought captain knew that if that capital ship finished arrival sequence, then nothing humans could do would matter. So he ordered one last full forward assault, and every remaining railgun fired, and every spare coil was overloaded, and every backup capacitor was dumped into kinetic spike after kinetic spike, because this was the last chance to reduce alien number before the final arrival, and humans needed to cut as many ships down as possible, because if the capital ship came in with full support, then Earth would be erased without resistance. And the dreadnought fired until the hull plates glowed like red iron, and until human hands felt heat through the floor panels, and until the engines screamed from stress. 3 more alien ships fell before the capital. Tear reached final opening stage, and this small victory gave the dreadnought crew a small surge of hope. But that hope lasted only one breath, because the tear widened across thousands of kilometers of empty space, and from inside that tear, humans saw the front edge of something that did not look like a ship that humans had ever known, because this thing was not shaped like metal or hull, This thing was shaped like a living machine, and its surface looked like black scales that were coated in patterns that moved like living ink. And those patterns were changing like language symbols that were alive. And the dreadnought cameras tried to focus, but autofocus kept glitching, because the form was not stable and looked like it was shifting shape between frames, like it existed in two shapes at once. Earth Command sent a single transmission that said, "Hold position as long as possible." And humans on the dreadnought could not decide if that message was brave or cruel, because to hold position against something like that was like telling a human to stand in front of a collapsing star and hold it back with their hands. But humans still held position because humans had no other path, and because humans were born on a death world that taught them that fear does not mean surrender, and death does not mean silence. And so the dreadnought engines burned until they shook like they were about to shatter. And the dreadnought moved ahead again because there was no reverse left in human courage. Then every alien lesser ship stopped moving, and they made a perfect line in front of the capital arrival, like honor guard or shield wall. And in that moment, humans understood that these lesser ships were not just war machines. They were servants to something that was more than ship and maybe more than species, because that capital entity looked like a predator of realities, not just worlds. And the dreadnought tactical AI said that the entire alien formation had changed target mode from destruction to observation, and that the dreadnought was now being scanned on every wavelength and in every mass frame, like the aliens were looking for something inside humans that humans did not know they had. Then came a shock that froze every heart, because a voice entered human brain, not through speaker, not through comm channel, not through sound. This voice went directly into thought, and the voice was heavy like a mountain, and the voice said humans were not supposed to exist because humans were not part of the accepted path of evolution, and humans were anomaly, and humans were glitch, and humans were error in universal pattern, and humans made the universe angry by existing. And the aliens said they came only to correct the universe by removing humans, so the universe could continue without infection. And humans almost broke from that message, because this message made every human feel like they were crime just by being alive. But then something happened that aliens did not predict, because the dreadnought captain did not break. He felt fear, but fear turned into anger because humans do not accept destiny from outsiders, and humans never accept that existence is wrong. And the captain stood and said one line that would enter history, and he said, "You do not decide what universe allows, because humans decide their own existence." And the dreadnought fired every remaining bombardment coil in one final strike, and this strike hit the alien lesser formation so hard that 5 alien ships shattered, and then the capital shape inside the tear paused, and the patterns on its surface froze like it was shocked for one breath of time, because humans refused fate. And that pause was the single opening needed because Earth Command had been charging a surprise weapon inside Deep Space Platform 0, and that platform fired a directed singularity seed that humans did not want to use, because this weapon could tear space if misfired, and the singularity seed hit the edge of the capital tear, and the tear collapsed like ripping cloth backwards, and the capital entity was forced back into whatever dimension it had been entering from, and the collapse made the alien lesser ships lose command sync because the capital influence had been supporting their field control, and when that influence was cut, those ships lost hull stability, and every remaining alien ship cracked like frozen glass, and then turned to dust, and the battlefield was suddenly empty. Ares Prime was barely intact, and its hull was bleeding metal fragments into space, and its shields were flickering, and its engines were almost dead. But the dreadnought survived, and the Calypso survived inside the shield bubble, and no more alien ships remained, and the capital monster was gone or pushed away or blocked for now. And Earth Command cried in disbelief because nobody expected to win, not even in Miracle Dream. And humans had survived, a thing that should not be possible. And humans now understood why Deathworld species are feared, because humans are not. Mistake, humans are counterforce to extinction. The crew on the Calypso looked at the shattered battlefield, and they saw only dust and broken fragments and empty space, and they felt heavy silence, because silence after battle is always the loudest thing. And nobody celebrated, because victory felt like shock, not joy, and they knew this was not end, because aliens would return, One day because they saw humans and now humans were visible to the larger universe and humans were target, and humans would need to grow stronger than they ever imagined. Because the universe clearly had rules that humans did not know and humans had broken those rules just by existing. And so humans must be ready for next war. But even with that fear, the dreadnought captain said that humans had proven something important. Humans had proven that existence is not assigned by others. Existence is taken by will and held by force and protected by courage, and humans are masters of adaptation. And humans learn while dying. And that is what makes humans unstoppable, because humans can turn despair into weapon and fear into fire. And so the dreadnought broadcast to Earth that humanity lives and that the first war against the void has ended, and humans won, and Earth answered with one line that said, "Humans hold the sky." The Calypso then plotted course back toward Earth because they had to return and tell everything. And they had to prepare next generation because the monsters out there would come again. And they would come with more force and more hate. But they would find humans waiting with stronger weapons and stronger minds. And stronger hearts, because humans are not anomaly. Humans are storm that refuses to die. And as the ships drifted home, every heart aboard felt the same truth, that the future would be hard. But humans were ready. The tear in space kept growing, and there was no color in that tear because it was not like a portal that humans knew from science fiction. This tear looked like someone had peeled open empty space itself, and inside the tear there was only more darkness, and this darkness was more dark than anything humans had ever seen, and this darkness looked like hunger. And Ares' prime tactical sensors said they were reading pressure of mass from inside the tear, and that pressure was so heavy that the dreadnought main hull began to vibrate. Because the arrival mass of the alien capital ship was so large that it was already changing the local gravity curve, and the alien lesser ships moved aside to make path. And this told humans that the new arrival was not just support. It was command inside. Calypso, every crew member stood still like statues because they could feel something in their mind, like cold eyes watching them from inside that tier. And humans were not sure if that feeling was sensor noise, or if that feeling was alien pressure that was so strong that it could reach into thought, but the feeling was real enough that one engineer said he felt like something beyond that tier was looking at humans, like a person looks at a small insect before stepping on it to end it. And nobody argued because this feeling was too heavy to ignore. The dreadnought captain knew that if that capital ship finished arrival sequence, then nothing humans could do would matter. So he ordered one last full forward assault, and every remaining railgun fired, and every spare coil was overloaded, and every backup capacitor was dumped into kinetic spike after kinetic spike, because this was the last chance to reduce alien number before the final arrival, and humans needed to cut as many ships down as possible, because if the capital ship came in with full support, then Earth would be erased without resistance, and the dreadnought fired until the hull plates glowed like red iron, and until human hands felt heat through the floor panels, and until the engines screamed from stress. 3 more alien ships fell before the capital. Tear reached final opening stage, and this small victory gave the dreadnought crew a small surge of hope. But that hope lasted only one breath, because the tear widened across thousands of kilometers of empty space, and from inside that tear humans saw the front edge of something that did not look like a ship that humans had ever known, because this thing was not shaped like metal or hull. This thing was shaped like a living machine, and its surface looked like black scales that were coated in patterns that moved like living ink. And those patterns were changing like language symbols that were alive, and the dreadnought cameras tried to focus, but autofocus kept glitching, because the form was not stable and looked like it was shifting shape between frames, like it existed in 2 shapes at once. Earth Command sent a single transmission that said, "Hold position as long as possible." And humans on the dreadnought could not decide if that message was brave or cruel, because to hold position against something like that was like telling a human to stand in front of a collapsing star and hold it back with their hands. But humans still held position because humans had no other path, and because humans were born on a death world that taught them that fear does not mean surrender and death does not mean silence. And so the dreadnought engines burned until they shook like they were about to shatter, and the dreadnought moved ahead again because there was no reverse left in human courage. Then every alien lesser ship stopped moving, and they made a perfect line in front of the capital arrival, like honor guard or shield. While and in that moment humans understood that these lesser ships were not just war machines. They were servants to something that was more than ship, and maybe more than species, because that capital entity looked like a predator of realities, not just worlds, and the Dreadnought tactical AI said that the entire alien formation had changed target mode from destruction to observation, and that the Dreadnought was now being scanned on every wavelength and in every mass frame like the aliens were looking for something inside humans that humans did not know they had. Then came a shock that froze every heart, because a voice entered human brain, not through speaker, not through comm channel, not through sound. This voice went directly into thought, and the voice was heavy like a mountain, and the voice said humans were not supposed to exist because humans were not part of the accepted path of evolution, and humans were anomaly, and humans were glitch, and humans were error in universal pattern, and humans made the universe angry by existing. And the aliens said they came only to correct the universe by removing humans, so the universe could continue without infection, and humans almost broke from that message, because this message made every human feel like they were crime just by being alive. But then something happened that aliens did not predict, because the Dreadnought captain did not break. He felt fear, but fear turned into anger, because humans do not accept destiny from outsiders, and humans never accept that existence is wrong. And the captain stood and said one line that would enter history. And he said, "You do not decide what universe allows, because humans decide their own existence." And the Dreadnought fired every remaining bombardment coil in one final strike. And this strike hit the alien lesser formation so hard that 5 alien ships shattered, and then the capital shape inside the tear paused, and the patterns on its surface froze like it was shocked, for one breath of time. Because humans refused fate. And that pause was the single opening needed, because Earth Command had been charging a surprise weapon inside Deep Space Platform 0, and that platform fired a directed singularity seed that humans did not want to use, because this weapon could tear space if misfired. And the singularity seed hit the edge of the capital tear, and the tear collapsed like ripping cloth backwards, and the capital entity was forced back into whatever dimension it had been entering from, and the collapse made the alien lesser ships lose command sync, because the capital influence had been supporting their field control. And when that influence was cut, those ships lost hull stability, and every remaining alien ship cracked like frozen glass and then turned to dust, and the battlefield was suddenly empty. Ares Prime was barely intact, and its hull was bleeding metal fragments into space, and its shields were flickering, and its engines were almost dead. But the Dreadnought survived, and the Calypso survived inside the shield bubble, and no more alien ships remained. And the capital monster was gone, or pushed away, or blocked for now, and Earth Command cried in